Okay. Mr. Cohen, in fact,
Yeah.
speak to your record as a landlord, because there were obviously many violations filed. There were several lawsuits. And the title of the ad is one you're going to have to address, is that you're a slumlord.
Okay, well, let's, again, I think we're off message. We shouldn't be really discussing this, but it's brought up, and so let's put it to sleep, or let's put it to bed at this point. When we refer to these lawsuits that the senator is referring to, there were approximately, that she refers to, 3 lawsuits, one of which was in a building that I did not own that occurred subsequent to my ownership. The other 2 actually occurred in properties that I own. They were settled by the insurance company. There was no finding of guilt. They were all settled by the insurance company for a value that they determined that I was not a part of. So yes, there were lawsuits. They were settled by the insurance company. In terms of drug sales at my buildings, the 2 cases that she's referring to, in the first one, it was not at my building. It was at another building. Her information is completely inaccurate. And in the second case, the one that was at my building was actually, we had already commenced eviction proceedings against the tenant, had a warrant of eviction against the commercial tenant, and when the city learned of that, immediately dropped the case. So that when they brought the suit, they immediately dropped the suit. So those are the 2 cases that she's referring to. And third, she keeps talking and referring to complaints and violations in my buildings of 600. Well, to set the record straight, I have 25 buildings. I have approximately 500 apartments that my business owns and runs. She's talking over a period of 20 years. That's approximately 1 complaint or 1 violation per decade per apartment. That is not a record that you could consider to be that of a poor manager.
That's all the time, Mr. Cohen. Karen?
Okay. Well, we've heard this over and over, but I think it bears repeating. Westchester County is the highest taxed county in the nation. The high cost of living and doing business is probably the #1 complaint I hear from the business community every day. The private sector wants to see some changes in the way the public sector operates, and they're calling for a more streamlined, affordable, and accountable state government. New York State has some 10,000 taxing entities compared to other states that have about 200. And there have been a number of studies about consolidation and ways to reduce the costs. Mr. Cohen, on your website you say, quote, "Arresting Albany's out-of-control spending will be my top priority." Every administration has had a study, and no one has done anything. So if you are elected to the Senate, sir, could you tell me specifically what steps you will take toward consolidation?
Well, I think that we have to start by realizing what has happened in our state government over the last 26 years. In 1984, our state budget was $28.3 billion approximately. It's now about $138 billion. That's a 4-fold increase in 26 years. When we look at the gross domestic product of the state of New York, that has grown about 3-fold in the same period of time. When we look at the cost of living, that's increased approximately 200 or 2 times in the same period. What I believe is that we have to get that spending and that spending and taxing under control. If we would institute a 2% cap on state spending going forward, we would be able to arrest that, what I call out-of-control spending. The only way I think that we can do it is by putting an arbitrary cap on that to literally slow down the state spending. That's where I see the first and most important step. Second, as I said earlier, the cost of pensions in this state is growing at an astronomical rate. We need to change that from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan. We need to do new budgeting in the state. I would like to see budgeting over a 3-year period, not a 1-year period, so that when we have budgeting, the first year has to balance, but so do years 2 and 3, so we don't give the legislators the opportunity to kick the can down the road and push it into the subsequent years.
Okay, thank you. Senator, if you are reelected, could you tell us what some of the first items will be that you will cut? What will you do to consolidate government, to ease this burden?
One of my bills, which then got broken up into about 6 different bills, concerned unfunded mandates. I see the avenue for savings basically coming through sharing of services, because I do not see our individual little villages giving up their entities. but they can share services, and so can the schools. And I have put bills in, and passed, they're all passed, and all signed by the governor, where BOCES will be unshackled, and they will be able to provide much more service than they have in the past been able to. So that now we're starting a committee on regional bus servicing for schools, a huge potential savings. We're talking about back office, all the work of back office is being done through BOCES, another big savings. I passed another bill where all libraries may now bid collectively as a group. Instead of each library going out for the 4 computers, now every library in Westchester can go out for 100 computers and see the benefits. That'll be for services, for equipment, and I think it will be a great benefit. Also, to cut costs for our libraries, we're going to have BOCES doing the telecommunication services for all the libraries. It's a very expensive thing for a library to try and do individually. There are ways that we can bring our services together that will be a great benefit.
And Senator,
also,
could you tell us what you expect the savings to be from some of these initiatives you're talking about?
Until we start seeing that and start seeing it happen, we have many areas that we can deal with. For example, another one of my bills is cutting the red tape for schools. After all, schools is what I'm responsible for, so that's what I was trying to focus in on. By looking at the 150 forms that have to be filled out by every school district, they said, this is ridiculous. Why can't we consolidate some? Why are some of these necessary? Maybe there's 2 lines that are different in the whole form. So we're getting rid of a lot of our forms. We are going to have certain services for pre-K that we haven't had before, where we are going to implement busing to the pre-K. I can't enumerate exactly how much money each school district would save, but we know we have to start somewhere. We cannot continue as are. We must get to the costs that have been driving up our property taxes. And the only way to cut costs, I happen to have voted twice on the tax limitation, but that's not enough. That's a 2 or 3 or 4% increase every year. That does nothing for the fact that we are overburdened now. We don't need 4% each year.
Okay, thank you, Senator.